I'd like to claim 10 minutes to speak in behalf of a bill which I hope will return to the Senate for today, which is the Surface Transportation Reauthorization Bill. I hope we take it up. I hope we actually vote on it. And I hope that there's not a lot of extraneous amendments that are not relevant to getting America moving again, creating jobs that result in public safety, a better environment, and people actually working. This is what I like about the Surface Transportation Bill, that in effect, this could be the only vehicle we have that's a version of the infrastructure bank, a topic I know the presiding officer has worked assiduously to do. We need an infrastructure bank. We need to have jobs in construction to build highways, byways, subways, and we can do it, but it looks like it will be difficult to do. In the meantime, we have a regular order bill, the Surface Transportation Reauthorization. This is the bill that Congress reauthorizes every couple of years to do, again, construction in highways and byways and beltways, and at the same time, in the very important area of mass transit, something the gentlelady from New York knows how important, since you have one of the busiest subways in America. But we have a busy subway here called the Metro, and I'm going to be talking about that in a minute. But right now, we must pass this long-term transportation bill to put people back to work, repair our aging roads and bridges and tunnels, and keep the public safe and lower our carbon footprint. Now, this is a bipartisan bill, and it's actually paid for and meets a sense of a frugal government, but smart spending. You know, and it's time to show the American people that we can govern, that we can actually pass legislation in a regular order, conducting ourselves with civility as we debate our amendments. We've got to keep America rolling. This is a jobs bill. One of the best ways to put people to work is through infrastructure projects. It builds America and builds our economy. This bill will contribute to saving over 1.8 million jobs and actually create new ones in actual construction, in the supply chain, and in design and engineering, and then all the other vendors that support it. In my own home state, we estimate that 10,000 jobs will be created if we pass this bill. I cannot speak about this in a more firm and insistent way. When I've met with my building trades guys, my God, these are bleak conversations with the unemployment rate in construction still sky high. This bill will jumpstart the economy. All the people who analyze this type of data says for every dollar we spend on infrastructure construction, we get $2 in economic output back into our economy through the multiplier effect. So let's do an inventory of why this is a compelling need. We know we have a high unemployment rate, but that we're running big debts and we're running deficits. One of the ways to reduce the debt and the deficit is by people working, where they're paying revenue into the government, but also we have an infrastructure deficit. Do you know that right now 700,000 bridges are structurally deficient? That's not a fact, that's a danger zone. 50% of our roads are in need of serious repair. More than 4 million people travel over these kinds of bridges every day. This would address that kind of problem. And then there's this whole issue of, again, roads, highways, byways, beltways. But then there's this issue of mass transit. And one of the parts of the bill that I'm most proud of is creating federal safety standards for the metro systems nationwide. Madam President, in June 22nd, 2009, we just had a terrible, terrible accident here in our own national capital region. 9 people were killed and 50 more injured in a terrible metro transit accident. That's when a red line train struck another train. Now, the woman who was the conductor on that train tried valiantly to save her passengers. She died as a result. Well, we went to the funerals, we listened to the people, and we always say, we'll never forget, but we do. But I didn't, and the Maryland delegation didn't. Ben Cardin didn't forget, Chris Van Hollen didn't forget, Donna Edwards didn't forget. So we worked very hard in creating legislation. The first thing we did was actually listen to the National Transportation Safety Board that gave us recommendations and said there was not only a failure of Metro being fit for duty, but all of transit in America faces this kind of risk, where there is a failure of technology, the failure of cars to be crash resistant, the failure to have exit doors, the failure to have a black box. And when you looked at the United States Congress, we are the failure. Give us F, because we have safety standards for how you open a bottle cap, but not how you open a subway car in a disaster. So it wasn't Senator Barb making up safety rules on her own. We went to and listened to the National Transit Safety Board. I put in legislation to give the Federal Transit Administration the authority to establish and enforce national safety standards for Metro. We had aggressive oversight hearings. Metro leadership initially just was dragging its axles, but I wouldn't take no for an answer. We shook up the management, we shook up the board, now I want to shake up the Congress. I want to thank Senator Bob Menendez. He had a parallel bill, and I want to thank Senator Tim Johnson, the chair of the committee. They've taken my ideas, they've actually done a version of their own, and working together, we've come up with a great solution that has bipartisan support. This checklist for change that I insisted on would replace the oldest cars in the fleet. It would develop real-time automatic controls so the technology would have redundancy in it. It would develop a training and certificate program so the personnel would know not only how to operate a car, but what to do in the danger zones. Runaway cars make a great movie. Denzel Washington did that one. But I don't want to see another movie where there's another transit system that went through the horrific accident of mine. So in this checklist for change, legislation working again with Senator Menendez, my colleague Senator Cardin, who I can't give enough credit to. Our new bill, in this bill, gives the Transportation Secretary, Mr. LaHood, authority to establish and enforce safety standards and allows federal funding for these safety improvements. So I'm really pleased that this was inculcated. But Madam President, the story goes one step farther, and this is about an example. Last year through the appropriations, I was able to get funding working with Senator Murray to be able to replace the Metro cars. That's these ones, they're old, they're dated, they can't withstand the kinds of pressures, all the problems I just enumerated. I'm going to tell you the rest of the story if Paul Harvey were on the floor. A couple of weeks ago, during one of our work weeks when we were visiting our constituents, I went to a place called Kenore Breaks in a county called Carroll County, which was once very rural. And there, Kenore Breaks actually makes the brakes for these Metro cars and makes the brakes for Amtrak and makes the brakes for many transit systems in the United States of America. Because of the improvements at Metro, they've been able to hire more people. I wish you could have walked that factory floor with me. It's not your grandfather's factory floor, which was often dark and dangerous. Clean, using the best of engineering, a few robots, engineers with skilled blue-collar workers who are machinists who are working on this very specialized work, because these brakes have to work, and they're the best in the world. Well, my workers in Maryland are the best in the world. Yes, they're part of a German holding company, so we're ready to be global. And at the same time, they are fixing not only Washington's metro, but they're working on transit systems. And my whole point is smart funding in the area of infrastructure and in transportation safety creates American jobs. Every time we modernize our transit fleet, we are building railroad cars in the United States of America. Those brakes that will go on that car, many of them will be made in Maryland by Maryland workers, competing with other American companies. And you know what? That's what it's all about. That's smart funding that creates safety and creates jobs. So I'm going to thank the Banking Committee for including this, but also I want to thank all three committees: Banking, Environment and Public Works, under the leadership of Senator Boxer, bipartisan with Senator Imhoff, Baucus and Grassley, and then Tim Johnson and my colleague from Alabama, Senator Shelby. You know, this could be a great day. This could be a great day or a great week that, yes, while we're working on the payroll tax and its temporary holiday, the real thing that we could get done this week is to pass this legislation. America will be safer, our economy will grow, and it will be a win-win situation. So, Madam President, I want to thank you for your kind attention. I want to thank all my colleagues. We worked on a bipartisan basis. We actually listened to each other. I had a set of ideas, others had it. Some had flashing lights about cost, back and forth. That's the subject of negotiation, and we were able to do it. And I think we've come up with a great bill for the surface transportation. We've come up with a great bill for transit safety, and I'm going to be happy to vote for it. Let's get Congress rolling so we can get our economy rolling. Madam President, I yield the floor.